Kelsey, I'm really excited to get into your career story to date. I know that you joined Southwest right out of college, and I'd love you to sort of bring me up the line of that journey and what you experienced.
I was part of about 200 people who came in for a summer internship. It was between my junior and senior year. And, up to that time, I had been a brand ambassador on my campus. I was studying marketing at the University of Missouri. So I had kind of dipped my toe in experiential marketing, but I still don't think I realized like the full extent that you could actually build a career out of it. And so I stumbled into an info session at the College of Business at Mizzou, and Southwest Airlines was there, and they were talking about their internship, and I just had this feeling. I was like, this is like absolutely what I want to do. And I started looking at the different roles, and I found this team called customer engagement and partnerships, and I immediately just like a light bulb went off, and I was like, this is exactly what I want to do. It's events, it's experiential, it's partnerships with major league sports teams and leagues, and it's all about travel. So like, what an amazing product to push and share. And so I amazingly got the position, and I ended up having an amazing summer. I went back the summer after I graduated, and I interned again because I loved it so much, and kind of hedged my bets on just being in the building and getting a role. And eventually I got hired on to the customer engagement team. And through those years, I spent about the next 10 years or so, a little shy of that, in Dallas at Southwest, managing partnerships and experiential programs for the brand. Was able to build some really amazing programs, kind of first of its kind for customer engagement, and then manage partnerships really all over the state, MLB, NHL, you name it. So from there, we had shifts in priorities, changes in the team, and then I ended up moving over to the Denver market. And I had grown up coming to Colorado. I have family that lives out here, and it was always kind of on the vision board of being in the mountains. And so then it was great because I got to travel out here all the time, and I was managing all of our partnerships. And then I got a call from a former colleague at Southwest who had left and had moved on to the North Face. So she said, we have this role. Are you interested in moving to Colorado? And I said, funny you say that. I've always wanted to move to Colorado. And so it was a bit of a leap, to be honest. I loved living in Dallas. Southwest Airlines I have nothing but wonderful things to say about my time there. But I was excited and interested in a change, and so I took the leap. And the North Face was building up experiential and partnerships at the time, and so I was able to take so much of what I learned at Southwest and really translate it to what they were building at the North Face. And so yeah, now I've been there for 2 years, which is it's been really awesome.
As I see your the kind of the evolution of your career within Southwest, there's a sort of a repeating word around engagement. It's more of an engagement discipline. How do you define it if within the sphere of experiential?
There's a quote that the founder of Southwest Airlines said, Herb Kelleher, and that's the business of business is people. And I think that's a lot of what I learned at Southwest and what I carry with me. I think engagement is really about that direct person to person experience. And I think there's so much to that. And it's not just business to consumer for me. Whenever I think about engagement, it's the business to the agency, it's the business to the partner, it's those relationships and the trust that's cultivated in those relationships that I think can really make a difference. And I think as the world continues to evolve more and more in the digital space, and especially in the AI space, I think there's a bit of a hunger to that person to person interaction. And while I think digital and AI are very, very powerful in enhancing certain experiences, there's still something so powerful that I don't think can be replaced with that person to person interaction. And I experienced that all the way back as a brand ambassador. Really, it's interacting with people. It's how you make them feel. It's not what you give them. It's not what you said. It's truly how you make them feel and the connection that's formed.
I think you're right. I think that there's none of us free from AI usage. It's become part of the fabric of every one of our lives, right? And we understand its benefits and its merits, but in so doing, in the adoption of it, we've sort of developed a need for reprieve, and the reprieve, I think, is very often IRL engagements, and I think that makes me feel really good about where we've sat ourselves in our career. That we, I think, just by dumb luck, have put ourselves in a place
Yeah,
that is
who would have
going to
thought?
become that in its rarity is going to become more and more special and more important.
Absolutely. And you think too, again, it's kind of just it's totally by chance, but what we went through with the pandemic and the removal of experiences and being together. I know I had a little bit of a loss of identity during that time because I'm like, what I do is connecting people. And so to find unique ways to do that when you can't physically be together, is definitely it's an interesting challenge, but I think that plus so much digital and online integration just in society, I think has created this yearning for it, and I think makes it a bit more special. So yeah, to your point, like we never could have guessed how things were going to pan out and how things were going to change, but we find ourselves really lucky in this moment. And I think especially as you look at Gen Z and the consumers of tomorrow who are, digitally integrated and online from literally day one of their life, now understanding the power of that. And I think it's a really interesting way, I think, when done right and authentically, to create brand loyalists and to really portray the values of a company in a way that encourages the consumers of tomorrow to invest and to stay and to be committed to the products and to the mission of so many companies. But I was taught, I think one of the most rewarding parts of my time at Southwest Airlines is I had incredible leadership. Probably some of the best leaders I will ever have in my career. And there are people who built the partnerships and experiential team truly from the ground up. Andy Allman was my director at Southwest Airlines for several years. Laura Lopez was a manager on our team. They're still very, very dear friends of mine. But they really built the customer engagement and partnerships team from the ground up. And I think some would say that their way of doing things, because they built the team, would be quote unquote old school, but it was rooted in people and treating people with respect and the golden rule, and having tough conversations in person. And I think as we kind of, to take it back to your question, there's so much, and from a person to person standpoint, that I think has changed or evolved or been replaced, because we can hop on the phone so easily like this, but having great conversations, celebrations, tough conversations, there's something about being in the room with a partner, with an agency, with whomever, that I think you really just can't replace.
You're at Southwest almost 10 years. You get tapped on the shoulder by the North Face, and it must have felt like a huge decision, right? You're switching industries entirely, from the airlines through to the CPGs. What's your thought process? What made it the right move for you? How did you weigh it up?
Oh gosh, it was very hard. It was a very tough decision. I loved my job at Southwest Airlines. I worked with really amazing people. I got to do incredible things. I think part of me was craving just learning something different, trying something new. But I was really content. I was really happy in my role at the time. And I got this tap on the shoulder. And at first I doubted it. And I was like, no, like that's not it. We're not going to do it. But then I remember having my first interview, and immediately jumping off the phone, running upstairs to my now husband, boyfriend at the time, and being like, oh my God, I think this is the right next move. So I hate to say it, because it's so cliche, but like my gut really just like I think in the same way I walked into that informational session for Southwest Airlines and something in my gut was just like, I think this is it. It was the same thing with this. I sat in that first interview and learned about the role, and I got excited about what value I could bring and all the knowledge that Southwest had equipped me with and grown me. And I was like, like, I think this could be it. So I also had really amazing friends and mentors. There was one piece of advice that now I give a lot of people when they're faced with a tough decision, because it was really the turning point. So actually a former colleague of mine who was at Southwest is now at the North Face with me, Erica Hood, a dear friend. I was, talking to her about it, and I was very perplexed with the decision. And she said, if a change this big, if you're a little bit excited about it, it's probably the right thing. If you feel totally overwhelmed and discombobulated about it, then maybe it's not the right time. But if there's a little bit of excitement in there, it's probably right, and it's worth taking the leap. And I'm so glad she told me that, because I took the leap, and honestly, it's been one of the best choices I think I've made.
That's lovely.
So
God, you're indebted to her there for that sort of
yes, forever.
because with Southwest, you were in a sort of a it's not broke, don't fix it sort of
Exactly.
situation. It's very hard to move out of that situation. A word that I have been thinking a lot about in my own career and through the industry is around job crafting. This idea that you could look at a role as it is and see what you would do with that role to make it your own. I get the sense that you were given that opportunity in North Face.
Yeah, I think the autonomy that I've been given at the North Face, and it goes back to, again, I'm very lucky. I have incredible leadership at the North Face as well. And I think they put a lot of trust in me, which I admit, I think to start, the imposter syndrome was real. But I think I very quickly, as we got into the work and met my team, I learned just there was a lot of opportunity there, and there's a lot of trust. And I think what's great about the North Face and what really equips me to do my job to the best of my ability is that there's trust, but there's also belief in the power of experiential marketing, and in partnerships. So, my leadership at the North Face has really given me a lot of space to voice my opinion, to challenge things, to grow, to really make a difference and changing the operating model. I think what we're seeing in so many companies today as well is the operating model is changing almost on a yearly basis. So that's an interesting thing to work with as well. But I think it creates a lot of openness. I think if you approach it without the fear of change and more of an openness to change, you're able to make a really big impact. And I think the trust that I feel from my leadership is really valuable.
Tell me some of the North Face highlights so far in crafting experiences.
Oh gosh, so many highlights. So we focus in the performance areas of snow, climb, and trail. Those are our main focus areas from a product perspective. We have such a fun brand and such an interesting sandbox to play in, because not only do we create products that are enabling athletes to, podium at an ultra marathon, summit Everest, ski Everest, doing these amazing things. We also have this really interesting pulse and presence within urban culture, and streetwear as well. So it really creates this like vast space for us to play in, which for experiential is incredibly fun. Some of the highlights, I know prior to this, we were talking, or you mentioned Climb Festival.
I did.
So
Yeah. I loved it. I loved it. I loved seeing the footage. I was like, oh, I'd love to be at that.
yeah, so Climb Fest I think is a great example. It's this really unique kind of tension and cross between culture and climbing. And so it's this really special event. We produced one in New York City. Before I joined the North Face, they did one in Chicago. That was the first one. We did it again in New York City, and then last year in San Francisco. So it's this really unique festival and gathering that has this really high stakes, intense, but so entertaining climbing deepwater solo competition. So truly climbers we usually will get a barge. We have this wall that is suspended over the water, and it's a race to the top. And if you fall, you're not roped in for the most part. There is an option, of course, but you only have the water to break your fall. So for someone who's not familiar with climbing, it's this really easy to understand competition, but I think it just opens people up to the idea of the sport. We have climbing walls on site, so if people feel inspired and want to go try it, they can do that as well. But then we cap it off with panel discussions with athletes and voices in the outdoor community. We have musical talent in the evenings, which is really exciting. So it's this really great like mesh of culture and performance that I think is really unique to the North Face. It's a beast to pull off. I will say that.
Taking it forward to EMS, we're 2 weeks out. How are you feeling about your session? Can you give us a little window into what you're talking about?
Yeah, of course. I'm excited. It'll be my first time at EMS, so really excited to see what it's all about, and connect with folks out there. As far as the session goes, we'll be talking about trends in experiential. I think I've nodded to a few of the topics, I think, already in this conversation, but I think a lot of the sessions at EMS are centered around digital integration and AI, which is the talk of the town right now. But I think one of the trends that's really interesting to me, there's this desire and kind of craving, not only for person-to-person interactions, but also for nostalgia. So I think there is this like yearning for, 90s and early 2000s culture. There's a bit of a fascination with it. I'd love to go back. But I think, we think about tech and innovation, but I think as you are looking at consumer engagements, having these like nostalgic and almost analog interactions, I think there is just this desire for simplicity. And I've always said as a marketer, simple is better. If you have to explain an experience to someone, or if there is a barrier to get into the experience, you've lost them. So I think a lot of what I'll speak to on the panel are just those simplistic experiences, being able to personalize, adding in touches of nostalgia. Who knows how long that fad will last, but we'll take it while we have it.
I think it's being an old dog, the thing that has given me great heart over the last years, to see that sort of the rise of the analog, as you say, the drive to nostalgia, or even late teens, early 20s now, being nostalgic for a time that they actually didn't grow up in, a time before all of this, a time before the social medias. And in some sense, I think we're seeing some evidence, I hope, of almost like a self-regulation, where they're saying, I need a detox from this. And I saw that there is a drive now to go back to the corded headphones, right? I just saw this last week. This. Yeah, and that you might need a little adapter for the base of your phone or whatever it is, but that people now are like, I don't need another thing in my life that I need to charge. I didn't used to need to charge my watch, and now I do. I didn't, and they're like, enough is enough. I'm going back to the wires. And it's almost has become a kind of a statement of quiet rebellion, just to have
it is a quiet rebellion. I just learned, I'm apparently not that hip, that corded headphones are making a comeback, and I'm very proud to say I still have a whole set of old corded headphones.
I will be front row and center cheering you on for the session on Tuesday the 19th. I look forward to meeting you in person.
Yes, me too. I'm so looking forward to it. It's going to be a great week. I can't wait to get out there, and excited to, finally meet you in person.
Kelsey, thanks a million.
No, thank you for having me.